Aitken got stoned. Okay, now my wife was after me about the spelling of Aitken. And I go, I know it's in the Bible, it's A-C-H-A-N, not E-N. But you know, it sounds more like Aitken when it's E-N. And since you have an Aitken in the camp, no, A-C-H. Actually, in Hebrew, it's like this. ACHEN. ACHEN. Yeah. The CH isn't a ch. It's not Chinese. It's not ch. It's so if you're speaking in front of someone else and you say ACHEN, no, right? Watch the I. Watch the I. That's a guttural, that ACHEN. And so now, this guy in the book of Joshua, turn to chapter 7 of the book of Joshua. Now, in this story, I'm going to move quick because there's a lot of information, and it's all good information, and it's all helpful information, but sometimes it might slow us down. So I'll read sections, but here is the premise statement of chapter 7. But the Israelites were what? Are you there? Joshua chapter 7, verse 1. The Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zimri, son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of them, and the Lord's anger burned against Israel. When you read that, you go, man, God, Lord's anger burned. Now, you have to understand now, we're talking about an ancient text. It is the Word of God. But culturally, who it was written to was very different than us today. If you go to the ancient world, you'll see this all the time. If it was written today, the language, how it was done, would be a little different. The message would be exactly the same. But how it communicates would be a little different. Therefore, this is why exegesis is important. Explaining what the original language means and why it says, how it says it. So here's the story. You remember the story of the parting of the Jordan River. Do any of you remember that? I'll say at Sabbath school, Sunday school, whatever school, maybe reading with mom and dad or just reading. Joshua came and they had the Ark of the Covenant, and when the 4 priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant walked into the Jordan River, and this is a place where we visit often. I showed it a couple weeks back, remember, where we talked about baptism, that location. Same location, 4 of them go in, boom, the water goes up on one side. I do this way because I'm assuming you're on the Israel side. I'm on the Jordanian side. It goes up like this, and it moves all the way back to a town called Adumah. It doesn't just stop there. It actually piles up, pushes backward and piles where there are larger mountains or hills on the sides of Jordan River. And the other side of it flows on down to the Dead Sea, and it goes dry. And across comes Israel, and they camp at a place called Gilgal. When we're in our bus going to Israel, we will go right past Gilgal, past Jericho, and on over the top of the mountain to Jerusalem, and on the other side, Tel Aviv. So they see this great city, which is really the front line on the eastern side of the west side of the Jordan River. Big walls, and you can see them to this day. They're there. Excavations have happened, and you can see it. You can see places in the wall that actually didn't go down. Some did. One place in particular did not. Interestingly enough, and someone named Rahab lived in a part of the wall, by the way. There's a part of the wall that did not go down in that destruction. And of 1400 BC, not 1250, 1400 BC is when this happened. And so it was told, and if you remember the story, they went around 7 times. First time once, second, third day, fourth day, fifth day. And it seems like on Sabbath they decided to do it 7 times. I don't know if it was the Sabbath or not, doesn't say, but it was Shabbat, meaning 7. They went around 7 times, and then they called out, "The battle is for the Lord," and the walls came down. Rahab was saved, and everyone was destroyed, and all of the booty, meaning all the gold, silver, the clothing, all the nice stuff that was there, that was to be devoted to the Lord. This gives us an interesting principle in our lives. The first fruits always go to the Lord, and then God will bless what's afterwards. But oftentimes we want to grab in the beginning, don't we? God was trying to teach a principle here. There was a guy named Aitken, not John Aitken, that went in there without anyone knowing it, and he saw some really good-looking clothes from Babylon. He said, "Oh, nice." And as everyone's carrying them, he carried them along with quite a bit of gold and silver. Now, then the next step was to attack another city, which happened in the end of chapter 7. And Israel said, "Oh, this town called," I know you see the letters AI. It's not like artificial intelligence. Actually, in the original language, it's Aya. How'd you like that, Jolene, if you'd like it? Aya. Wouldn't you like to live in a city named Aya? You know what it means? It means pile of rocks. And by the way, it is a pile of rocks to this day. I believe that name, I don't know what the name of the city was beforehand, but I think that the scribe writing it wrote that name in because that was the name that was given to it, because it became a pile of rocks. Well, they come, Israel comes, and they say, "It's no problem. We don't have to send everybody because this is going to be easy." I mean, Jericho was a cakewalk. God did a huge thing. It is not much. So they headed in, and guess what happened? The attack happened. Israel lost a bunch of people, and they ran. And they were hurt, and so many people, so many Israelites were killed in this. Okay. So then, our friend Joshua comes along. He lays down in front of the Ark of the Covenant at the temple and says nothing for a while. And the elders of Israel, they lay down and say, "What?" And then he says, "What has happened? Why did we even cross over the river if we're going to be destroyed? God, you said you would be with us." And God said, "There is sin in the camp." Sin in the camp. So, there's an Aitken in the camp. That's what my conference says all the time. That was supposed to be a joke. I know. It's sad when you have to make people laugh. Anyway, never mind. But there was something terrible that had happened. That was to be devoted to God. And by the way, all the booty or all the gold and silver and everything that was supposed to come from the following cities, they were to go to the Israelites. But somebody couldn't wait. Somebody just had to take a part of what God's portion was. Now, let's continue the story, and then we'll get to the lion's share of it. Because it's always nice to know what we're talking about before why it's being told to us, right? So, God says, "I want you to start to pull straws." You know what pulling straws is? You take like all these straws and you have a short one, or maybe you have a different method, maybe dice or whatever. You have 12 straws in your hand, and each tribe leader pulls a straw. And the short one was Judah. And then, here we go. Then the next one comes along, and first it's Judah. So then all of the tribe having the different clans. And forward came the short straw of the Zerites. And then, this is after a time. This was an entire day. Now, if you're Achan, what would you be thinking right now? What would you be thinking? You know, this takes time to do. Someone could have said something beforehand, before going all the way and finally getting to Achan. I think God was actually saying, dude, say something. In fact, not just him. You think he might have been married? In fact, it says that he was the head of a family. You think his kids might have known what he did? Think about it. Gold, lots of clothing, silver, heavy. You think someone helped him? Are you with me? Did I put you to sleep? I hope I haven't put you to sleep. Interesting thing. It always bothered me when I was reading this story, when Aitken gets stoned, not with weed, guys, but stoned, literally stoned, destroyed, executed. It's not just him, but his family. I go, that's so unjust. But think about it. He's got a tent where multiple families, it's not like today where you have like 2 people in the family live over in Montebello, the other 5 people live over in San Francisco, they're in traveling mode. They haven't even gotten their inheritance yet. They're living together in the tent, and somebody feels a hard spot below the carpet. So you roll that carpet back and look, and oh, there's something. Oh, have we experienced that in your life and mine? Have we experienced it where we know something's wrong and yet we don't say anything? Have you? I'd like you to watch something. This is a part that, this is something that, this is from the 1970s, a study that was done. It's called the ACHEN experiment. The ACHEN experiment. Have you ever seen this before? You see those 3 lines? Now, here's the experiment. Your college students are brought into a room. This was done in like 1975, 76. College students or young people are put into a room, and they're all going to decide which line is equal. So they see that side, and then you see this one and that one and that one. And you'll notice number C, or letter C, is right, correct? Can you see that? You got the same size. But this is a psychological experiment, and no one knew this, that everyone in the room was an actor except for the one person brought in. And they want to do a study on how sociology changes us and how people around us change based on what others say. And let's turn up the volume. I'd like you to hear this.
The ACHEN experiment is one of psychology's oldest and most popular pieces of research. A volunteer is told that he's taking part in a visual perception test. What he doesn't know is that the other participants are actors, and he's the only person taking part in the real test, which is actually about group conformity.
I apologize, this is an old video.
The experiment you will be taking part in today involves the perception of line length. Your task will be simply to look at the line here on the left and indicate which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. So, for example,
you see that?
The actors have been told to match the wrong lines.
Yeah.
The volunteer will be monitored to see if he gives the correct answer or if he goes along.
Now this
with the
guy right
aim of
there,
the group
this
and
guy
gives the
in
wrong
red
answer.
right there. Watch him.
In the first test, the correct answer is 2.
1. 1.
1. Two.
1.
Now, first, he's like, what in the world? What's wrong with these people? Two. Now watch.
Once again, the correct answer is 2.
3. 3. 3.
3.
Have you ever been in a situation like that yourself? Maybe morally even. Or maybe it's just, have you had, like let's say you're at someone's house and they serve you something very delicious, but it's not delicious. You ever had that? I remember, I'm sorry, my Romanian friends. I went to Romania and we did a mission trip to Romania and I was in college and I remember they gave us, it was delicious food except for one day. Of course, it's the day before I had to preach. One day, they had cold milk cherry soup. You ever had that before? If you're Romanian, you might know what this is. It's like milk. It's got cherries in it, and it's cold. And it's a soup. And I think ours wasn't pitted. I think that was... And I remember I was there, and I had it, and you know I'm in mission mode when I go, oh, thank you so much. My friends were like, no go, you know what I mean? But, you know, see, there are good and there's good reasons and negatives sometimes when it comes to truth and how we operate, right? Okay, we've all been in the situation, and that guy is in the situation I was feeling like. Okay, whatever, 3, sure, whatever. Let's see the next guy.
Been repeated many times, and the results have been supported again and again. We will conform to the group. Again, we're very social creatures. We're very much aware of what the people around us think. We want to be liked. We don't want to be seen to rock the boat, so we will go along with the group, even if we don't believe what people are saying.
Doesn't happen at all today.
We still go along.
Especially with social media, right?
Group dynamics is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology.
1. Now watch this guy. You're going to love this guy. I love watching this next guy as they start going through.
2.
2. I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2.
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2.
Watch this guy.
2.
Look at that. Now you're gonna like how that works with all of us, right? You're gonna like watching that. It's kind of funny, isn't it? But it actually isn't funny, because sometimes it can be very negative. Have you been with maybe family or friends, and you know something's wrong, but no one's willing to deal with it? Huh? I remember there was a video I was watching on this very thing mentioning in Korea, a Korean airline, where the pilot was very wrong in a calculation, and the co-pilot, which the purpose of the co-pilot is to say something if there's a problem, wouldn't say anything. How when you're thinking about maybe 200 lives, that's when it starts becoming serious. Think about it. In the case of the war with Ai, Israelites were lost because, you know, let me back it up for a second. I know this guy, ACHEN, was married. And in the Middle East, ladies in the Middle East, I know oftentimes there's the rep that there's sometimes not as aggressive, but let me tell you, I know Middle Eastern women. They'll tell you what's wrong, but somehow, he got away with it. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I kind of liked the clothes or the money that came in. Our investment, maybe this is good for our family. No one wants to say anything. You know, my friends, this is the hardest thing in life, is to have the wisdom to know when to speak and when to be quiet. There is a reason why our mouth exists, right? It is not to just fill airtime, but it is to make aware so that the Spirit of God in our own hearts can be reminded. Have you ever felt that before? God will even speak to you. Sometimes you're doing something that you're not maybe even communicating with family about. Have you had that before? And you know it's wrong. But then some news program will hit, and somehow it's dealing with the same thing. God's speaking to you. Maybe someone says something, not connected. Maybe someone reminds you, and you go, breadcrumbs are being put out by God to say, don't go, don't go, don't go. Have you had that in your life? Don't answer too loud, because we'll all be watching you. No, just kidding. But we all are there. I, as a pastor, am there when you deal with anything in a church. We have to go and do it with respect of not others only, but also of God. Respecting someone else does not mean agreeing with their actions that are inappropriate. While loving that person, at the same time, we also appeal to God. That's the hard part, because Christians have one foot in the world and one foot in heaven. And we always stand there. And this is exactly what Achan, in the situation, or should I say Joshua, was in. 1 foot on earth and 1 foot in heaven. God was saying, guys, you cannot start a building and build a foundation that is built on something other than something strong. How do we have an answer to this? What do you think? What do you think would be the answer? Do you think you might have said something as the straws are going out, one at a time going out? Or would you have remained quiet as well? That's for you to think about. I am not the one that can answer the story for you. God, and how He works with you, will answer that story and how you respond. But I'd like to give you some good news. This is one of those things where it's like everyone's silent. Woo, this is heavy, right? Yeah, it's the kind of heaviness that we all experience. Because in life, we're coming into this political stuff again, right? Next year, some kind of election, not only for the government, but also even for our conference and even for the unions and all these things. Everybody, it's all politics starts happening. You go, I don't want to deal with it. Well, it's there. We start to ask ourselves, is something true or not? Am I just agreeing to get along or not? Am I doing what's right? And do I have the wisdom to understand the difference of what to deal with and not? In our lives, we all need to make choices. Just because we've made wrong choices at times in our life does not make us bad people. I believe, I'm sorry, the Bible doesn't say this. I'm going to tell you, this is what Pastor John believes. If Achan If one of his family members, and I guarantee you his family members did talk to him, guaranteed. Judah, Zephyr, Zimri. There's like 5 possibilities of time to be able to deal with it. We move on. I'm a good man. I'm a pastor. I'm a good person. I love God, and, devoted to me is fine. Or we could say the other one. It's better to just, maybe in the middle of the night, try to throw it out when no one looking, right? But neither had happened. After pulling the straws, if Aitken or his family members had come forward, it would have changed what happened. Instead, something else happened. I'd like you to look. Now, here's the part where I may get fired. I have a clip from The Hobbit, okay? But I want you to listen very carefully to what Gandalf, the guy with a long beard, says. Listen carefully. By the way, I love animation in this. Well done. Let's turn up the volume a bit. I need to keep talking over it so that YouTube doesn't strike us.
In the shadows, unseen.
Turn up the volume, please.
From our sight, it will not show itself. Not yet. But every day it grows in strength.
They're talking about
Must be careful.
evil. Evil is growing in Middle World. And we can feel it. We know there's evil coming. What is the answer to that? Let's find out what Gandalf has to say.
Mithrandir, why the halfling?
She asks, why someone from an unseen part?
Sunland believes that it is only a great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found.
What holds evil back?
The small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love.
Did you hear?
Why Bilbo Baggins? Perhaps it is because I'm afraid. But it gives me courage.
What he was saying is, I know you're in the middle of the story right now, but there was great evil rising, right? Let's turn on the lights again. Great evil was rising. And what Gandalf said is, the head guy that's in charge of making things thinks that a great spell can hold back evil, meaning very powerful lock to lock down evil. And Gandalf says, I don't believe that holds back great evil. He said, it's good people doing small things. Are you listening? Are you awake? Did I put you to sleep? Good people doing small acts of kindness. Many of them compounding makes evil hold back and at bay. I want you to turn with me to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, where the Apostle Paul makes this case for all of us this morning. Romans chapter 12, starting with verse 1. Let's read it together. You with me? All right. Therefore, I urge you, my brothers and my sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your what? Your bodies as what? Living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this what? World, but be transformed by the renewing of what? Oh. Then you will be able to test, approve what is good and pleasing for His perfect will. You know what he's telling you? He tells all of us the same thing. God does. It's not a bunch of guns. It's not a bunch of strong tanks. It's not nuclear warfare that stops evil. Because you can't fight evil with evil. Just like Martin Luther King Jr. said, you can't destroy darkness with darkness. It doesn't work like that. You must be the what? Light. There was a individual that was dealing with persecutions. I don't know if you remember in Egypt a few years ago, it was from 2008 to about 2012, there was the Muslim Brotherhood in charge of Egypt. I don't know if you remember that. Many Christians died on crosses in Egypt. I know the media blacked it out because they didn't really want any of us to know, frankly. But if you're online, you could find that information. And one person that was talking about how he was being persecuted and how he was being burned, and he was told his wife was going to be killed if he continued to believe in Jesus. But he got a vision during it when he was experiencing this horrible pain of burning. I'm not going to tell you where. All the pain left him, and he got a vision of Jesus coming and hugging him. To this day, he's damaged. His wife is alive, he is alive. But what he said in Egyptian Arabic, what he said was, the only thing that stops evil and darkness is for good people to be quiet. My friends, God is calling all of us to have those good acts of kindness and good. Imagine if millions of people changed their accounting habits to something that God would want. Imagine what would happen to our economy. Imagine if everyone, when you're hit on the road, would stop and say, I'm sorry, and figure things out financially. No, instead of just running. Imagine if every one of us together treated other people with dignity and respect. Prejudice would disappear. I mean, the acts of prejudice would disappear because the acts of goodness are overreigning. My friends, ACHEN was stoned, and his family were executed because God knew the only way to make Israel clean was to make sure that evil is not there. Does that mean ACHEN won't be saved? I don't know. I'm not of the mindset saying that he's lost. I think that's up to God. Let him handle that. I'll deal with my stuff. I'll worry about me, my family. Let God deal with that. But God is calling you and me to be good people in this crazy world. Yes, to defend ourselves, not to be doormats. Doesn't mean that evil people should just be able to just roll over us. But yet, at the same time, to be the best kind of people we can be. Asking God for wisdom and how to sift between. And that is how great evil is destroyed. May God bless you all.